thank you so much to Aisha and her panel there. A brilliant session on the capital markets, navigating volatility and long-term growth. Right, before we move on to our next panel session of the day, yes, as mentioned, we have a very special announcement coming up. So this is going to be from Nevesa, who have a very impressive 20-year track record in the capital markets, whose mission is to bridge global capital with India's growth story through investment access. So, to tell us more, please give a very warm welcome to Sanal Kumar, who is partner at Nevesa Capital Investment. A very warm welcome. Here is a microphone for you.
Thank you, Laura.
Right, please do share with us. What is...
Just before that, it's 1:10 and everybody, the cortisol dip is there, so I'll try to make this announcement and keep everyone awake.
Sure.
So just to give a quick background about Nevesa, we are a research outfit, but an investment manager. So we advise a fund which invests into India. And now the major announcement is that we are also going to tap in the domestic capital base. So we're going to launch a Category 3 AIF. But more importantly, just to talk about India, we focus only on micro caps initially. And these are, we are in the business of long-term concentrated investments. So we are not talking about many companies. We're just talking about how many fingers you have in your hand. That's the amount of companies we focus on. Even Elon Musk, at one point of time, will not focus on probably more than 6 or probably 7 companies. So we try to focus on one company. We have a person-to-portfolio approach. Each one of our co-investee companies is where we mirror the CEO with us. And that's the investment strategy we go through. And in this turbulent times, I do believe that India is safeguarded because we've got a huge local economy. You can say that we have got 36 countries to manage, 28 states and 8 union territories within India. So imagine the kind of market. We had the chief minister telling about how one state is becoming a $1 trillion economy. In only one state. So that's the amount of market we see. And we are pretty confident on the Indian promoters, the entrepreneurial ability, backed by Make in India, though it's the frugal or the jugaad approach, which is the hustle mentality. And that really gives us a lot of encouragement in investing and piggybacking them. We believe bear markets are the best time to invest. So when the gentleman asked a question, do you invest right now? It's absolutely spot on time to invest. If you miss this, you again pay a higher buck and then you waste a lot of money there. So we try to invest at the right time. And that's why we're launching the fund when it is gloom and doom across and we have super turbulence, because it's not turbulence, it's an opportunity. So that's what we believe.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. We're very excited to see how this plays out,
Sure,
and we'll be watching your journey very closely.
And thank you very much to IGF for giving us the platform, especially to Manoj, Webber and team. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to have you here. Let's give a round of applause to Sanal. Thank you. Yes, thank you once again to Sanal Kumar there. Very important announcement. If you do have any further questions, please do make sure to speak to any of our speakers as they come off the stage. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we move on now to our next session here at the IGF Mumbai 2025, where we're now going to move from that capital markets discussion a little earlier on to the future of investment and the huge potential across India and the UAE as innovation hubs. And who better to give us the latest updates than our next guest? And you are not going to want to miss this, ladies and gentlemen. I am absolutely delighted now to be joined by the co-founder of Titan Capital and Snapdeal. You might have also seen him as a shark on Shark Tank. Please give a very warm welcome to Kunal Bahl. A very warm welcome. Really wonderful to have you here. Please do take a seat. And now please give a very warm welcome to the CEO of one of the leading largest online retail platforms in the MENA region. He's the CEO of Noon Group, Faraz. Khalid, thank you very much. A warm welcome. Wonderful to have you both here. Didn't I tell you not one to miss, ladies and gentlemen? I feel a little bit far away from you, but we will continue. Now, sadly, we've only got 20 minutes, so we've got to make this quick.
Yes, sure.
So, first and foremost, just very, very quickly, I wanted to sort of make the opening question quite a quick one. But Kunal, when you look for an investment, what makes an investment particularly attractive, especially when it comes to the UAE-India corridor? And who do you think has the edge when it comes to being the global innovation hub, India or the UAE? What do you think?
So thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being on this forum. Look, the criteria we would use to invest in a company, irrespective of whether they're catering to the domestic market in India or the overseas market, is largely the same. They just happen to focus on different markets. So the areas we would focus on is obviously in the early stages, the quality of the team. Have they demonstrated any amount of success in anything else they've done in life? Could be art, could be dancing, could be singing, or could be another venture prior hand. Secondly, we would look at, what is the, most investors would say they want to go after large TAMs, right? Like, that's why companies want to say that, hey, I'm going to be a global company from day one. What we look for is companies that are going to be very, very narrow in the beginning in terms of their focus area. So we call it a laughably small TAM. And the third area would be just the ability to generate economics, right? Unit economics in the business, because you may want to sell to the UAE or sell to India or sell to the US, but if you're not able to make money selling it, there's kind of no point. So the criteria stay the same. They don't necessarily change. Obviously, if you are selling into the UAE or selling into any other global market, building from India, you have to have an appreciation for what that market needs. So we operate a software company called Unicommerce, which is public listed in India, and we sell into the UAE with our software. And we realize certain nuances about the market where the sales cycles are a lot longer. And so the companies that we invest in need to be cognizant of the fact that if you are going into some of these international markets, the sales cycles can potentially be quite long, given they see you as an outsider. So these are some of the attributes we would keep in mind.
Yeah, really interesting. Faraz, wonderful to have you here. Great to share the stage with you again. You have been a key player in shaping the UAE's economy, the digital economy, in fact. So India has very deep tech talent, but the UAE, of course, is very much aggressively attracting global innovators. So who do you think has the edge, and what do you think is also the secret in terms of attracting and retaining talent?
Great to be here. Thank you for having us. It's fascinating because I tend to straddle both worlds. I was born here, but I live in the region now. I think at the end, what it comes down to is the world is becoming flatter and flatter. I feel like we all work, and where we live is not necessarily where we work. So I think in that sense, I think the battle for talent has become global. We're based in the UAE and Saudi, but we have offices in 16 countries, and sometimes like the total number of people in that office is 2. So as companies scale, and I think the real battle is to find the smartest, hungriest, most focused engineers, data scientists, marketers, and you'll go to all sorts of places where you can find them. I think for me personally, I think the pace of building is a function of a skilled workforce, but a happy workforce, of a stable workforce. We saw for almost a decade, it's been calmer for the last 3-4 years, but India was a very hard place to retain talent. It was an arms race, right, with all the venture capital sort of like money. So I feel like there are other places in the world which offer more stability because you get a little bit more balance. And I wouldn't comment on your question directly, but I'll say that, yeah, like you're finding talent in very unexpected places. We recently opened an engineering center in Baghdad, and what do you imagine? But they're phenomenal STEM talent and not that many opportunities. So I feel like all of us trying to build things need to be a little bit, thinking a little bit like sort of left field, and the aperture has to be wider.
Yeah, because I was going to say you actually have quite a huge support team here in India anyway as well. So yeah, the whole ecosystem across the UAE and India works pretty well. Right, on to the next question, Kunal. Now, Union Minister Piyush Goyal made some rather scathing remarks recently. He was actually here yesterday. He's not here in the crowd today. But he recently made some remarks around the Indian startup ecosystem, very much highlighting its culture and urging better innovation, and also that we need to very much focus on large-scale problems rather than, fancy consumer products. What is your response and your thoughts on that statement?
I was waiting for the moment you would ask the question. Look, I think the minister is appropriate in his comments because largely, what leaders of a country need to do is precipitate conversation, precipitate debate, precipitate discussion, which is clearly what he's been able to accomplish. It is also clear that there are voices on both sides of the aisle, but everyone on either side of the aisle wants only one thing, which is progress for India. So those who say, hey, we don't have innovation because we haven't had the runway to invest the many billions or hundreds of billions of dollars that China and the US have been investing in education institutes, R&D centers, grants, venture capital firms, etc. They also want the best for India, as does the minister, when he's pushing the founders and the ecosystem participants that we need to go for more deep tech type ventures as compared to only consumer businesses. Look, I've built a consumer business with 100 million customers. I've built a software business which does 1 billion orders, and I've invested in many deep tech companies and many consumer companies. I feel all of them solve a problem for our country, and all of them that work out do us proud, and we must celebrate all of them. That said, we must keep pushing the boundaries and keep widening the aperture of the ecosystem, but be very mindful of the fact that there will be steps that will be needed over a long run. It won't happen overnight. If you want to have deep tech innovation in India, some of the things I mentioned in terms of investments, India invests 0.6 to 0.7% of our GDP in R&D. China has been investing 2.5%, 3%. The US has been investing even more for decades. And their GDPs are 4 times, 5 times our size. So the compounding effects of that quantum of investing in R&D over decades is what we are seeing when you see an OpenAI come out of the US or a DeepSeek come out of India or out of China. We will see our time in the sun, but we have to have the mindset that it will take time and it will take a lot of investment. I don't think there is dearth of talent. I don't think there is dearth of ambition. Once we enable the founders with with all these rails that will enable their success in these deep tech ventures, we will see those ventures come out in India as well.
So do you think at the end of the day we just need more of a balance? So to push forward with that innovation, more large-scale problem solving as well as the fancy products?
I think when a founder thinks about a problem statement, they are not thinking about balance. They are thinking about, here is a problem I have found. Do I have the skills and the ambition to pursue it, to solve it, to build something big? Yes or no? If it's a yes, they go for it. They don't overthink, is this going to be deep tech enough for me? Right. They're just trying to find a large enough problem which matches with their interest and skill set and pursue it. Right. And over time, I remember when I started, there weren't even enough consumer internet companies. So at that point in time, we didn't have role models. Mm-hmm. But once we built our businesses, it provided role models for the next generation of founders. And those who are building deep tech businesses in India right now, they are providing role models for the next generation. So with every subsequent generation, the aperture widens and more companies and more founders start pursuing such businesses.
You need that type of inspiration, don't you? Faraz, over to you. What are your thoughts? Do you have any comments you'd like to share with us on that statement in terms of more innovation, more problem solving is needed?
No, I agree with Kunal. I think, and more specific, I feel like, a lot of the consumer internet companies that sort of we see around us these days are the frontline soldiers that created the whole ecosystem. You know, kids coming out of college are excited to work at startups because Kunal built the company he built, and you know, his peers have built the ecosystem in India. It's become cool to work at these companies that are not called, you know, the legacy big industry companies that you would look forward to working in. So I think there is that very, very big sort of like first like line of attack that is sort of like, and we're very lucky that we have these leaders talking so openly about it. I think, and the second thing, my co-founder and I talk about this all the time, even in companies that have like a fair amount of capital and sort of engineering prowess available, where do you deploy them? I feel like these foundation model companies, the LLM companies that sort of like we know, like DeepSeek, or OpenAI, Gemini, I feel like an incredibly larger profit pool is going to get unlocked at the product layer. So how you implement AI and its applications is going to create this enormous profit pool where a lot of innovation is going to happen, and there'll be opportunities for people who are closer to the customer. So I feel like I'm personally very excited about that second wave, and I feel like this is a good catalyst to stoke that conversation. But most founders that I talk to are already sort of implementing AI in a very deep way within their companies. It's not easy. But also, I feel like there'll be a wave of companies that come now that try to capture that opportunity, that profit pool that is getting unlocked by the huge enabler that these foundation models present. So, I mean, slightly specific, but I do think that some incredibly strong layer 2 companies are going to come through in the next decade, and a lot of them, I won't be surprised if they originate in India.
I'd be interested to hear what you hedge your bets on as well. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later. But in the meantime, I was reading that fundraising fell to 2017 levels. A few issues there, and we've also got Trump's tariffs in the mix as well. Do you think we've entered into the dark age for startups? What do you think?
Well, definitely not in India, because we are just getting started here. This is still very early stages of our ecosystem. While a lot has been built, so much more is going to be built. This is not the first sort of funding down cycle, at least I have seen. This may be the 5th or 6th I have seen over the last decade and a half. And in every funding down cycle, the doom and gloom narrative descends that now what will happen? But entrepreneurs are called entrepreneurs for a reason. They find a way. They always find a way. They will figure out how to be more efficient, more effective, move faster with lesser resources, maybe less headcount. And as Faraz was rightly saying, with the tectonic plate shifts in technological innovation with AI, like we are seeing in our companies, like 25-30% of the code is now being written by AI. So suddenly the need for having sort of very large teams to build out the business is no longer there. So you can probably do a lot, accomplish a lot as a company with far less people, with far less resources, which is also great because founders end up owning more of their businesses at terminal point, which was historically a challenge. I feel AI will lead to going back to that era where entrepreneurs will own 50-60% of their companies. Like in the prior session, they were saying that the average promoter or founder ownership in India in public listed companies is 60%. But I can tell you in startups that is 5% or 10% at most, because they go through so much dilution. So we have celebrated capital raises and funding cycles to such an extreme degree that we've forgotten that it is merely one ingredient to building a company. And if we need less of it to build more impactful businesses, that's good for everyone.
No, completely. Same question to you, Faraz, really.
Look, I think it is real that, easy money died like a few years ago already, we know this. But I feel like great companies will continue to get funded. Great founders will continue to get funded. As we get older, we remember being on stage like this, like 7 years ago. We were a lot younger. As we see these cycles, I feel like even for investors, the opportunity to deploy capital, the number of mature professionals that you find who worked at great companies, who know consumer internet or deep tech or whatever space that you're trying to invest in, the talent pool is definitely richer. So I feel like a lot of, you'll write smaller checks, but you'll write more certain checks. And I think we're seeing that, the typical Series A round, at least in the geography that I work in, is shrunk quite a bit, like by 40 to 50%. And that's because the waste goes away, and also you're more certain of like there are more experienced technology professionals in the ecosystem across the world now. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, how do I say this? Like, fewer bad companies will get funded. The great companies will continue to get funded. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably what's going to happen. So if you back yourself, you're a great idea, you have a need for your product in the world to exist, and I feel like great companies will still get funded.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you need this innovation to get the funding at the end of the day. So you've got to work towards those goals. So I wanted to quickly take a look at cross-border collaboration. What do you think are the sort of biggest challenges to really make this type of collaboration work? And partnerships and collaboration, it's thrown around all the time, but what is that real secret to success, do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've been working at, I chair CII's National Startup Council, and CII is the apex industry body in India. And we have been trying to figure out a way to build the bridge between India and the UAE. And one of the fascinating things, as we've taken cohorts of founders over to the Middle East, to UAE and other countries in the Middle East, is there is an incredible amount of openness to Indian businesses, Indian startups, and Indian startups products. And also for the Middle East investor to invest in Indian startups. But there seems to be some amount of asymmetry of information, where there is doubt on both sides as to how do I enter the market as an investor or as an operator. And I think it is organizations like IGF and organizations like CII and others who have to do their part in enabling this bridge building. But I think like companies like Faraz's, companies like ours have to build that trust for those who want to enter our markets, where they should feel that there are credible partners in the market. And, sometimes investments work out, sometimes they don't work out, but it's not going to be for reasons which are ethical in nature or reasons where it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth with respect to that market. So there's obviously work to be done in building those bridges, but I think progress is happening. A lot of the brands, for instance, in India, the new age brands, I think sell on Faraz's platform, Noon in the US, in the Middle East. So it's obviously happening as we speak.
No, completely. That leads me to Faraz, because you've got got a wealth of experience across the whole of the Middle East now, and obviously, of course, here in India. So what advice do you have, maybe for everyone here in the audience, when it comes to approaching new markets, maybe from India to the UAE?
Yeah, my guess is as good as yours, frankly, but I think I agree with what Kunal was saying. I think getting a better understanding of the actual customer need is very important. I feel like even though those markets are small, they're highly competitive because they're more generally open. So if you go to the Middle East, you'll compete a lot more with the Chinese companies. You'll compete with European sort of companies shipping directly into that part of the world. So there's this whole information and governance asymmetry that you're sort of starting with a disadvantage on day zero. I feel like that's one factor. The Middle East is big, 400 million people in the Arab world. It's not small. GDP per capita is extremely high. It's a big profit pool. So I think it makes sense. I think if it's a part of a company's strategy to really approach that market seriously, then I think talent density is very important. It cannot be a side gig for the side gig of the chief of staff. I feel like it needs to be a dedicated team tackling that problem. And it could work out, but again, back to the original point that Kunal made about investments, TAM is very important. For many businesses, the TAM might be too small. And if you have a finite amount of gunpowder you might be better off just making a cannonball and attacking your core market and winning than sort of like creating lots of bullets that have no effect in various parts of the world that may actually have more competition. So, I mean, the founder knows. I mean, there's nothing I can say. They know in their heart what the right answer is. But yeah, I think the key point is that it's a big market, 400 million Arabs in the world. It's a big profit pool, but if your service is relevant, then be very serious and do it like almost as a primary thing. Otherwise, it most likely will not work out.
I've got one final question. We've got to be very, very quick because the time has sadly run out. But if you both had to exchange innovation ecosystems to operate exclusively in the other country, what do you think would excite you the most about operating there? Kunal, why don't you start us off? Maybe you've got about 30 seconds.
I feel the purchasing power of the Middle Eastern customer. Like, I think the good question to ask is, if there's one thing we could just take from the other market, what would it be? Yeah. I would take the purchasing power.
I would take the total number of customers. So, yeah. So, India has massive TAM, but not the purchasing power. We have purchasing power, but not the TAM. So,
as they say, grass is always greener on the other side.
I think we should launch in the US. 350 million people, $70,000 GDP per cap. I'm kidding.
As you said, the grass is always greener, isn't it? Faraz, Kunal, thank you so much. What a really interesting conversation. We cannot thank you enough for being with us here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, any further questions, please do speak to any of our guests as they come off the stage as well.